Hello, everybody. I am Jonathan Burnham, aka Kalos. On Xbox, I am SLR Kalos. I used to run a sim racing or simcade league on Project Cars 3. That's where that name change came from. However, this video is about the force feedback on Forza Motorsport 2, and wow, is it a massive improvement from Forza Motorsport 7. Some of it is the physics. Um, because a lot of the force feedback settings are the same. They do pretty much the exact same thing. There's been some adjustments. Some things actually work, like center spring. But what I want to do is I want to actually go through each and every one of those. So for those of you who are here, they're like, hey, what is your force feedback settings? Will they work for me? I will show you those here in a moment and start with that. But I encourage you to actually go with me through this video, because I'm not only going to tell you what each setting does, I'm going to show you what it does using telemetry that Forza Motorsport provides. That way, you can see what it's doing, and then you can actually figure out for yourself what force feedback settings work for you, as opposed to just relying on, hey, does this person have a good setting, this person have a good setup. Sadly, out of the box, the force feedback on Forza Motorsport is pretty poor. But obviously with some tuning, we can make it feel a lot better. For me, I definitely wanted a strong feel of my rear end and what it was doing, so I've made adjustments for that to work. Going through these settings will also help you in case you want to make it feel more sim-like, or if you want to make it more competitive, so that the car is easier to control in, say, multiplayer. Forza, they have a simulation going. I played ACC. I really don't like the force feedback in ACC, but I played Race Room and AMS2, and I love the force feedback on both of those. And this, for me, this is the settings I have for me is how I get closest to that. So, without further ado, for those of you who just want to see my settings and run, let's go there first. So we're going to go into settings. Let's do this. Over to advanced input. I'm not going to go over the dead zones and that too much. I do have a dead zone on my brake just because I have a load cell. I don't want that initial. I kind of keep my foot on the brake. I do left foot braking, so I don't want that triggering the brake pedal. But we'll skip over that because I don't think that's important for most of what we get here. So if you just want to see my settings, here they are. 15 for vibration scale, 90 for force feedback scale, steering self-alignment. I'm going to tell you now, is a combination of mechanical and pneumatic. So this is the overall setting. You can change this without changing road feel and other things. Mechanical, trail, pneumatic, I will go over those in detail, but you can see I have a high mechanical trail at 140 with pneumatic only at 60. Road feel, I kind of settled on 100. I feel like you can get more feel with it, but for me, I felt like the curbs and different things could upset the vehicle too much, the wheel too much, and throw off my steering. Load sensitivity at 55. Wheel damping, I have that at 10 now. I'm still going back and forth in between 0 and 10. I feel like damping is just, it's too much. It really is. A dynamic damper at 50, and I'll go over why. Center spring scale, this did not work in Forza 7. In fact, I think all it did was center your wheel while you were in menus. It actually works now, and I'll show you what it does. I don't really like the effect, so I have it turned off. Obviously, sensitivity and linearity, I want that to be as linear as possible. I have it set to 50. So there you go. There's my current settings. I'm sure I will fine-tune these in the future, but for right now, this is where they're at. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to zero all these out, and I'm going to go through each and every one of them one by one and show you what they do using telemetry. So you're saying telemetry, John. Let's go ahead, start the race. Or a time trial. I'm just in a time trial. I might turn down the... if you notice, my FOV looks a little different than maybe you're used to seeing. You can adjust the FOV. I kind of like this. Gives me... I can see my mirrors. I have triple screen, so I can see my left mirror. Can't quite see my right mirror. And I can see my steering wheel inputs. Now, I'll cover the degree of rotation and how to make it match what's in the cockpit. But I'll do that later after I'm done with force feedback. So telemetry. If you're on the gamepad, you can push down. But if you're on the wheel, I have my little clicker. I'll push down, and it brings up telemetry. Usually it'll bring right here. You click it once to the left, and you see right here is all the force feedback details. You have steering torque, spring scale, and damper scale. The vast majority of what we're going to worry about is that steering torque. So I'll go ahead and show you what happens when we hit a corner. Of course, I'd stop quite a ways away from the corner. You can see it's already got a little bit of vibration going down the straight. There is a way to tune that out, but then you're going to lose a lot of feeling and other things. This is kind of where I settled. So when we go into a turn, it's taking this really easy. See how that goes up? Steer right, steer left, steer right, steer left. Now, if that purple line hits the top or the bottom, what's happened is you have clipped. So that means at the top or bottom that you're losing detail. Spring scale only affects the center spring scale, and I'll show you what that does. And damper scale, you can see at 0.009 or 0.09, I have that very low. The dynamic damper and the wheel damper work in tandem. The damper, if you just have it set without we'll get to that later. All right, so let's just go back into our settings, and we're going to zero everything out and go through each one by one. I say one by one. There's a couple of settings that do absolutely nothing. Load sensitivity and dynamic damper behavior. They'll do absolutely nothing with everything zeroed out. Load sensitivity affects pneumatic and mechanical trail. And the dynamic damper is only tied to wheel damping scale. Because if you read it, it reduces the amount of damping under when the tires are slipping. So let's zero everything out. 0, 0, 0, 0. Okay, 0, not 1, 0, 0, 0, 0. So now everything is at 0, other than steering. We're going to leave that alone. We want that to stay linear. So we'll start with vibration. Let's put that up to 100 and see what it does. Now, what this does is it kind of affects tire slip. So if you're burning up the rear tires, you'll get some vibration. If you're starting to lock up your tires under brake, you'll get a little bit of vibration through the wheel. It's not very progressive in the sense that it gives you a good indication of how much you're locking up the tires. In fact, it feels like it engages before the tires are fully locked up, even. So I don't find it wholly useful, and it's more of a, do you like the sensation? So this is gonna be a little difficult because I don't have the clutch on. Let me see. Hold on. Let me put the clutch on so that we can make this. I can show what this does. Clutch. Manual with clutch. Okay, that didn't work. So you can see it isn't affecting the telemetry at all. In fact, I'm not. Oh, I know why I'm not getting anything. Oh, hey, why isn't this working? Okay, you definitely need force. All right, let's just go through this quickly. All right, so vibration, force feedback scale. You'll get absolutely nothing from anything if this is at 0. So where was I at? 95. We'll just stick that at 95. So that has to be on, otherwise your force feedback is entirely off. Now let's go back to see what vibration scale does. All right. Ah. So you can see I get a, I don't know if you can see it. The wheel vibrates. It's affecting nothing on here. This is entirely a canned effect. I get vibration. It just kind of at the wheels. If I spin the tires, I'm trying to spin the tires. Hardest. It. I would expect. I don't know what's going on. There we go. As you hit the acceleration. This also affects. You're gonna want some vibration when you hit walls. When someone hits you with another car, you'll get a like a bit of an effect. Okay, I apparently don't know how to drive a clutch. That is utterly weird. All right, we'll just go back to manual clutch. Don't mind me. I'm still learning too. So yeah, that is the things. It does. It'll hit a wall, you get vibration. Tires start slipping, you get vibration. So yeah, you can see a little bit of slip, even though I'm in total control of the car. I can feel the vibration. Interestingly enough, doesn't seem to do anything really with like grass and bumps and things like that. It doesn't affect the road, the curbs at all. Only if the tires are kind of slipping. You'll get a little bit of vibration. If you're burning out, you'll get vibration. If you're braking and they're locking up a bit, you'll get vibration. So that's what vibration does. Go back in the settings. We're going to turn that off. Yeah, this is going to be a little long. I'm sorry if I'm a bit slow. These menus really don't help. It takes a while to get to anything. We're going to turn vibration off. We're going to turn... Now, we have to do these in tandem. So, I think I had... I think this is actually supposed to be... I had this at 95. Don't mind me. Alright. So, steering self-alignment with both mechanical and pneumatic trail do nothing. That's nothing. At least I think it does. We'll see if I didn't actually test this. See? That purple line? Nowhere. You still have no force feedback. With that, so like I said, that is a combination of mechanical and pneumatic trail. Now I'm going to explain in simple terms what these two do, because this is, I think this is the big thing that really throws off, say, sim racers. And one of the complaints with a lot of sims is that they don't have much feel for understeer. One of the ways they give you feel for understeer in Forza Motorsport is through the pneumatic trail. And what happens is you get this alignment curve as you're turning that goes up, and then once you exceed traction, it drops off. That happens at the rear and the front, but more so you're going to feel it with the fronts. But it definitely creates problems when you're trying to feel the rear, because now you have force feedback where the traction at the front comes in, it'll kick in and it's coming out and doing all kinds of weird things. So we'll start with that. Let's start with pneumatic trail. We're going to turn that all the way up. you can see. So here we go. You hear, and boom, it drops off. I was purposely understeering. See, it just drops off. It drops off. So it goes in, and then once you start losing traction at the front, it goes off. I'm going to see if I can put it in a slide. You can see I have almost no force feedback. It kicks in, and it's just doing all kinds of weird things. So this is a very useful effect for helping you figure out understeer. I feel like between road feel or load sensitivity and vibration, you're going to get enough tire feel for when you're losing traction, and when you are, how do I put it, and then mechanical for the rear end. This is pretty much good for figuring out understeer because the wheel's going to go slightly lighter. This is why I have it so low, 60 for me, because honestly, I don't feel like I need that. Now, one thing, you do get a slight bit of feel through the pneumatic on the curbs. So, I mean, it does affect that a little bit, but, oh, excuse me. Still recovering from a cold a bit, so I got a bit of cough. Also, your centering feel with pneumatic is much less, it's much more sensitive to, I guess, the road a little bit. And you're going to get a lot of oscillation out. You're going to get a lot of oscillation. And this is what I was talking about, how you kind of reduce the oscillation. Because now we're going to go, and we are going to put mechanical trail to 200. So you can see the difference. These are the two most important things for kind of getting a feel for when you're understeering and when you're oversteering, and giving you a solid feel at the wheel, in my opinion. If the wheel just doesn't seem to be behaving like how you would expect it to behave, raise your mechanical trail. Keep raising it. Maybe lower the pneumatic in conjunction, because now there's no drop off. If I go whichever direction I'm going, it follows the rear end. With just mechanical trail, there is literally no feel other than that. I can go right over the curbs, I feel nothing. I take that back. There is a very tiny bit when you go over the curbs. But this really gives you the confidence under braking when the car is kind of squirming around. It gives you the confidence to keep it under control. You're under hard braking. Then you throw it into the corner and you can feel it. Oh, there went the rear end. Just let it correct itself. It did it on its own. The stronger the, and you can also see if we're going straight, no oscillation, none whatsoever. Car literally goes straight. There still seems to be a slight bit of like work on the wheel. Can't quite get it the centering to 0, but that's probably my wheel. If you have a direct drive wheel. But if you want strong feel at the center, high mechanical trail is the way to do it. If you want to reduce the oscillation, reduce the pneumatic trail. You can just really throw a car into a corner. You just feel confident in what it's going to do. Even if it goes flying off the track from understeer, you're at least feel like you're in control. Like just with this alone, this is all I have. I feel the confidence. I have the confidence to throw the car into the corners. Hit the brakes late and just turn it and expect it to do what I want it to do. This is probably your most important setting. Does it make it feel like a sim? by itself, no. But look at that. No oscillation in the wheel. And I feel entirely in control of it. And I did try this with a road car, not just a GT3 car, and it's the exact same thing. In fact, it was a lot easier with the road car to induce oversteer and just kind of slide it through corners when I wanted to, because maybe that with the road car, like the Mustang early on, look at that, I started losing the rear end, it came right back to me. This is probably your most important setting, mechanical trail. And for me, I feel this probably needs to be the higher setting. The effect from pneumatic just feels unnatural, but it is very useful for suddenly feeling that bit of understeer. So what you can do is say set your mechanical trail at 200, right? And then slowly increase your pneumatic by lowering the mechanical trail in tandem. Remember, if you put them both up to 200, you're probably going to be clipping, unless you lower the steering alignment setting. But what it really does is gives you that confidence, and it reduces the oscillation if you're more mechanical. And if you want that feeling of the wheel going a little light when you're understeering, and the fact that pneumatic just gives you a little more feel of the road, then, you know, slowly increase it while reducing mechanical till you find something you're happy with. So now let's move on to I'm actually going to skip over road feel for the moment and go to load sensitivity. And the reason that is load sensitivity is directly tied to mechanical and pneumatic trail. So we'll raise that up to 100. You could see how smooth the mechanical trail was in its see how you're getting a bit more waviness. What the load sensitivity does is it appears to take what the tire suspension is doing, and that's in the telemetry too. If you come over here, what the suspension is doing, this is a GT3 car, so it's pretty stiff without a, and kind of uses these to affect this. So now you see the sharp jaggies. Yeah, that is the input from the suspension getting loaded into the trail. So what I would recommend is when you go over to settings here, is that you first figure out what combination of mechanical, let's see, I settled at what, 140 and 60. Figure that out first. And then come back to load sensitivity. Maybe take it up to 100. See what it feels like. And slowly start lowering it until you get the amount of suspension detail you want. I think I had it at 55. Until you get the suspension detail that you want in the car. So going back to it, now that you know what mechanical and you know what pneumatic trail does and you know what load cell does, now you can watch that steering torque and what it's doing, all the waves, sharp jaggities, oversteered. I lost a little bit of weight, but it didn't go crazy. Also, another thing that I find that load does is it does give you a bit, you'll start getting a little bit of, you know, vibrations. You see when you go over the curb, you see how that goes into the torque. So you'll start feeling that through that. So from these alone, you can get a little bit of curb feel. And we're going to talk about how to maximize curb feel here in a moment. You can see, so the curb feel is relatively weak. It's based on that suspension data going into this torque setting. But it does give you a little bit of that without having any road feel whatsoever. Also, I think load sensitivity, let's go back a bit. Before dips, so I'm really in a bad part of the track to go over this, but so like dips in the road, there's a few points here at Road America where you have those little dips. You don't really feel those with straight pneumatic and straight, yeah, you can see I get vibration. You get a little bit of set with the suspension. You actually get a sense of that. You can kind of feel the change in the force feedback when you hit a little bit of a dip. And it affects kind of how the wheel responds. So that the load is important, I feel, in combination with those. It's just a matter of how much intensity from it you want. Right here, here's a good one. You can see almost every curve. There's a dip here on the inside of this corner. You go up, come down. Yeah, you can kind of feel that now through the force feedback with load sensitivity up. So it's just a matter of how much of it do you want there. All right, now that we've covered, I hope this makes sense. If you have any questions, go ahead, feel free to leave a comment and ask, and I will do my best to respond and help try to make it any clearer. I know I can get a little verbose and take a paragraph to say a sentence. So since we've been through all this, I'm gonna leave that there. It doesn't do anything if these are at 0. We're gonna take load sensitivity. Oh, screw it. We'll move it all to 0, and then we're gonna turn up road feel scale. This, what this kind of does is it really amplifies. So you can see already how it's amplifies it. So when it's really high, you got to be a little careful here. Once you combine it with the load sensitivity, you can get some clipping. So I mean, maybe 200. If you really want to feel those bumps and feel those curves, go as high as you want. With a high load sensitivity and high road scale, you'll definitely get more curb sensation. However, road feel does not affect collisions, so you don't feel that. However, you do feel the grass. So you get the vibrations from the grass. Without road feel scale, you don't really feel it other than see the effects. So I mean, I would say this is definitely important. You just want to make sure you're not clipping. And I feel like for my CSL Elite, it comes through pretty strong with it that high. Once those load and road feel are combined, they can really make curves a bit, let's go back, a bit of a headache. Especially if you combine it with vibration, right? So we're, just as an example of how crazy the force feedback go, let's go back and put my settings in. We're actually going to put vibration scale up to 40. And then we're going to put, do our, whatever, 98. That's close enough. We're not going for perfection here, just enough to make this 60. And then we're going to leave road scale and put load sensitivity. Now that we know what they do, we're going to put them up as high as they go. You can see a lot of things kind of work in combination with each other. With road feel, you'll actually feel the bumps in the road too. you'll feel the vibration of bumps from the road. So, I mean, really, it's a personal preference for how much of that you want to feel. And a lot of people complain that it's weak. You might have to turn it up pretty high. See how that kind of goes all over the place? And it can definitely upset a vehicle when you're going over the... You have to make sure you have steady hands on your steering wheel, because it'll want to jerk it around, and the next thing you know, you're fighting the steering wheel for control. So it really comes down to how much do you want it to feel like a sim, and how much do you want to be competitive. So lowering these settings, as you saw earlier with Mechanical Trail alone, I was able to keep full control of the car. I could visually tell if I was understeering or not. So a lot of competitive players, they see how pronounced all of that is now. And it really kind of affects how the steering wheel feels. Yeah, now I'm getting all kinds of vibrations. So if you want to be competitive, you might be turning some of these settings down. Or if you want it to just feel like a sim and have the immersion, you can turn them up. Just make sure you're not getting any clipping so you don't lose detail. You can see right there, I wasn't clipping. If you want to see what it looks like when you clip, maybe a little more clearer than I showed before, we can just turn this up to 200. Put this up to 200. I have no damper on this wheel, feels heavy as all can be. But you can see how it's hitting the top. This is entirely clipped. So I have like no detail. I have some canned effects coming through. Yeah, I can't even feel the curbs when I'm clipped like that. It's just nothing. So definitely make sure you're not clipping. All right, what's next? Now that we've been through all those, we've been through vibration, overall force feedback. What was that, 90? There we go. Zero, zero, zero. Now let's talk about center spring scale. I'm going to skip damping because I'm going to want to go over that dynamic damper and wheel damping together. We're going to put this all the way up to 200. You can see what it does. In Forza Motorsport, this did absolutely nothing. It was like having no force feedback at all, even if it showed on this. So turn it off. Is at 0.6. And as I go up, it basically just wants the center of the wheel. The effect of this is not that strong. Let's see what happens when I do this. If I turn it, and you see the wheel wants to start straightening itself out, but it's not really that strong. You can see it drops off as you're cornering. And I think they may have made this effect a lot weaker as they didn't want it to ruin too much, but it really doesn't. So maybe you add it so that you can see it doesn't do a good job of even keeping me going straight. I'm like turning to the left because there's probably a slight, my wheel's getting old, it's not perfect. Yeah, so I don't really see the use of this. I just leave it off. But if you think you want that tiny little bit of extra centering capability, maybe you turn it on. I tried it in conjunction with other settings, and honestly, I couldn't really tell much of a difference. Why is steering on normal? Really? I think I reset some things, but I don't. Should have been on. Don't mind me. I had it on sim steering before. So that's really all center spring scale does. So if you want to include it, it's up to you. But now we're going to go to wheel damping. What this does is all it does is make your wheel heavy. We'll go here into telemetry, and now you can see once I put some gas in and the car is moving, that went up. Oddly enough, it wasn't up when you started. That's all it does, is it adds weight to the wheel. If you have no dynamic damper behavior, it'll just stay there and constantly make the wheel heavy. I find this to be kind of bad when you're trying to counter steer. So if you want to be able to counter steer, then you kind of need that ability to be able to do it. So I don't recommend heavy wheel damper by itself, but maybe you want a bit of weight to a wheel. So once you got everything else figured out, go to your damper, start at 0, and start just raising it up till you get to the weight you want. If you have the weight the weight in the wheel you want, this can also dull a bit of that oscillation you get. It doesn't take it away, but that bit of oscillation you get going down the street, this helps with that a little bit and kind of smooths out some of the feelings of some of the road effects. But let's say you got the weight in the wheel you want, you raise the damper to whatever you did, but it's affecting your counter steering and making it harder for you to counter steer. This is where dynamic damper behavior comes in. I'm going to raise that up to 100. Save. Excuse me. All right. Now you see that the damper, it's fully engaged now. Just like that blue line down at the bottom. Watch what happens when I turn. See how it drops off? So you start turning with a dynamic damper set to 100. It will not go fully away. Maybe down to 0.2 or whatever, some percentage. 0.24. So maybe, what is that, about 15% of 0.18? Something like that. Or 13%. So it basically reduces your damping by a percentage. So if you want that bit of more weight in the wheel, increase your damper to where you want it, and then you can raise the dynamic damper until you get the counter steering feel you want. This is why you see I had damper at 10 and then the dynamic damper at 50. I wanted to try it out, and I seemed to like just having that tiny bit of weight to the wheel, smooth things out just the tiniest of bit. But I also wanted it, I didn't want it to drop off entirely with my counter steering, because raise the damper for weight, and then raise the dynamic damper to get the reduction in damping you need in order to be able to counter steer. It looks like they actually did almost go to 0. So maybe I'm wrong there. But I hope that explains how those work. And you can use this telemetry to get what you want things to do. So that pretty much covers everything, but I'm going to do a quick recap. So first thing first is force feedback scale. Going to depend on your wheel and how much clipping you might get. I've got mine set to 90. Vibration scale, you can start out with that. Figure if you want any in, though I would recommend returning it to 0 when you're done. No, let's hold that. Do your steering self-alignment. So maybe set that at 100 and then play with your mechanical. So whatever you set your self-alignment to, put that mechanical trail at 200, start at 0 on pneumatic. Lower mechanical trail until you get the feeling you want for control of the car. If you get this set right, you can almost play the game. You can play the game almost entirely with just the mechanical trail, and you'll know what the car is doing. But lower it, and then once you've got that to where you want for overall weight and feel, you'll start raising the pneumatic. And I would recommend that every time you raise the pneumatic, so, you know, say we settled at 180, 183, and we raise the pneumatic by 11, that you lower the mechanical by 11. So go take this and go to 172, 171. And then you're going to even those out until you get to the feel you want. A little bit of pneumatic gives you a bit more road sense and also a feel for understeer. I'll put these back where I had them. Then your load sensitivity. Again, this gives you a bit of curve feel, gives you a feel for when you're going up and down hills and those dips. And basically inputs the suspension data into the torque settings. Once you do that, just slowly start, and you find the load sensitivity you're comfortable with, start raising the road feel scale until you reach the amount of road feel you want. I can't remember what's that. I think it was at 50. Was it at 50? I don't remember. I have to go back and look at my own settings. I'm going to have to follow my own thing to remember where my road feel scale was. Just keep raising it until you get as much road feel as you want. I want to say I was at 100. Yeah, I was at 100. It might be high, just really between road feel and load sensitivity, that combined with the cell alignment can lead to clipping, which means you're going to lose all kinds of detail. Next, figure out if you want the center spring scale at all. I don't. I think it's not a very strong effect, and it doesn't really seem to help. I feel like mechanical trail is more important for getting strong centering forces on the wheel. After you're done with center spring scale, go to your damping, raise it to the weight you want. I had it at 10. And once you get it to the weight you want, you're going to go to dynamic damper, and you're going to raise that until you get to the setting to turn the setting you need for counter steering when you do to reduce your damping, so that it doesn't affect your counter steering. That you can counter steer quickly, but still feel like you have weight on the wheel. So this pretty much covers everything, I think. And then I think at the end you come in and add vibration. And that's going to be vibration is just a canned effect. Like you saw, it didn't affect the telemetry at all. It's just a matter, you know, but it does. If you, I tried it higher, as I'm like, oh, I really want to feel the wheels locking up. I'm braking. I want to feel the tires rotating if I'm burning out. And then I realized that my wheel was vibrating through every corner I went through. Because if you were on the edge of grip, the tires are going to be kind of that in and out of grip, peak grip point, and you're going to start feeling a lot of vibration in the wheel. So I decided eventually I'm going with a lower vibration setting. And so that pretty much covers everything. I hope this helps you. I hope this helps you, you know, take, whether you're starting from scratch or if you're taking your favorite settings from somebody on YouTube and able to make the adjustments you need to get the best feeling you can out of Forza Motorsport 8. Thank you. Now as a bonus, let's talk of degree of rotation. So I have my wheel, my Fanatec wheel, set to auto, which apparently sets at the 900. Oops, back. We're not in settings. Don't need to be in settings. We need to go to car tune. So if you want to adjust your car rotation, you'll notice with a lot of, like this GT car, I have this set to 100, I'm going to apply that. Okay. We're going to go back. So this is by car. Let's get out of telemetry. So I want you to see each car in Forza Motorsport has their own degree of rotation. However, the wheel is set to a certain rotation based on that car. So like the Ford Mustang you can get earlier is 900 degrees. So if I turn my wheel 90 degrees, the wheel itself will be at 90 degrees. You can see right now, I have my wheel at 90 degrees and the in-car wheel is not at 90 degrees. So, and I also found I was having a hard time turning this car. And like when I first started up the game and I was playing on the Cadillac, I couldn't get that thing to turn for nothing. I was having to turn it over just to get it to go through a corner. You're going to need to lower. One thing that helped, you can use this as a reference where your wheel is in cockpit, and then get your wheel on your actual wheel to match up to that. And how do we do that? Well, I was just in settings. You're going to have to play around with it till you figure out what it is, because every car is going to be different. Why am I in settings? Tuning. And it's by car. You're going to go in your car tune. I'm really kind of disappointed in this. I wish this was separate from tuning, because it means any tune you download, you're not going to be able to adjust the steering lock range. I mean, you're going to be stuck. So if a controller player made it, you're probably going to be stuck with a 70, or you're going to be stuck. I think I had it at 65. So 65 of 900 is about 630. Look at that. Now I have this at 90. Now I have my wheel at 90 degrees. Now I have my steering wheel in car at 90 degrees. And I found that it actually felt a lot better to drive that way. Like it felt natural, as opposed to when I was at 900 and I was struggling to get the car to turn. Like, why does this look weird? Am I going backwards? I'm going backwards, aren't I? I am going backwards. But now, whatever motion I make with the steering wheel matches what the in-game cockpit is. You don't have to match it, obviously. I mean, you can use a different view without the wheel and then just set it to whatever you like. I like cockpit, and it drives me nuts when the wheel doesn't match. What I'm doing with my wheel does not match what's in the car. And I also found that using this method gave me a degree of rotation that felt comfortable for that car. I might find cars that doesn't work for me with, but for this one it does. So there you go. Now you also know how to adjust the degree of rotation, especially for the faster cars, so that you don't feel like if you started on the game with a wheel and you were trying to turn that Cadillac, you were probably having to like really turn it over to get the car to turn through the, and it's like, well, that's not right. And that's probably because the car is designed to have like a 360 or 420 degree of rotation. And you're just gonna have to set it. Luckily, you can set it. And obviously, if you have like a Fanatec, you can adjust what setting that is at to get what you want. But if you want it to match in-car steering, then you're gonna have to do it through the tuning. And I'm really kind of disappointed in that, because if you're downloading tunes from online, now it means they'll no longer work for you. That really felt like Forza 7 had introduced this, and I felt like it was separate, if I remember correctly, separate from the tuning. I wish it was here. I don't know why they decided to include it. It should be like by the car type. But there we go. That's my video. I hope you learned something. I hope it's useful to you, and in that you can make Forza what you want it to be. If you want it to be more like a sim, it's not. I don't think it's ever going to approach Assetto Corsa or AMS2 or Race Room or iRacing, but I think you can get relatively close to the feel. Or if you just want it to, your wheel to be more competitive for online play, hopefully these settings will help you figure that out. So have a good one. Peace. Enjoy the rest of your day.